Hi, welcome to this sharing of astrology. My name is Emmeline. I've been studying astrology for a couple of years and really enjoying going into the deep study, particularly at the moment. We have so much going on cosmically, earthbound stuff, which we experience because we're part of the universe. So astrology for me is extremely grounded. So I'm part of a group of galactic astrologers where we talk and chat about the goings on and related to political, social realities that we're experiencing. So you can check that out, the galacticshamanastrologers.net, for really much further in-depth study. And I wanted to share my own perception because I think we have something significant that we need to translate and to put out there in a video form as well. And it's important for me to write. I'm going through a phase of starting to write my own story. And this is really a particular astrology perception for this moment in time. And I hope it will serve you for what you're going through. So as I was drawing the chart this morning, I've drawn a very basic chart, but here is the basic chart that I've drawn for at the moment, with a few of my slight natal transits put in there as well. What we've got going on now, as we all know, with the sun in Capricorn, naturally we have the light, the luminary of our soul, shining through the deep winter phase of Capricorn. But we also have 4 other planets there. So we have Mercury joining together with Jupiter in this earthy, stable, sensitive and very structured, cold and hard climate. Approaching towards the sun is almost coming up midway, who has just gone over our collective past, our south node where we have been. So we've got a lot of this communication and a lot of this responsibility coming up towards where we have been in the past. Capricorn, for me, she is the ancient structures of Earth. Essentially, the ancient form of structure was formless and void. When we look at the ancient scriptures, the Bible is a really obvious one to go to. Before there was anything, before there was light, there was darkness and there was a formless void. So before there was a structure and a duality, there was a formless one. There was an asteroid who was upon the new moon, right next to conjunct, we say, the new moon, called Kiora. And I may have pronounced that wrong. And I have a beautiful picture of her in my astrology colouring book, which I don't have to show you. She or he is this, the genderless, the formless, before the Father God and the Mother Earth, the sky and the earth and the ground. Before these were created, there was this one who was a spiraling DNA spiral who just existed. And that is the sacredness of the interweaving of life, which is basically just the essential pattern before there was form and structure. So it's going backwards to connect with our essential original self before we say corrupt with sort of structures and systems of government that can be corrupted, which is a natural part of our evolution of humanity, to experience these negative, difficult, edgy times. It's a natural part of development and change. So when we consider the backwards journey, it's going back to the simplicity, going back to where we come from. So the nodes actually travel backwards. So the North Node of Destiny travels backwards through Cancer and to come into Gemini in the new year, in this year. Capricorn travels, the South Node travels backwards through Capricorn. So we are going backwards to our original self, and the structure we have is, and through Capricorn, we see that in the politics and in the society and the way we organize life as a collective. A lot of us, we can call that quite openly patriarchal. Though we have women in government, we would say it's based on Roman, ancient, democratic, patriarchal principles. Okay, I was reading someone talking about the matriarchy. The matriarchy was, we often look back and say, oh, the women in power. Let's say, like in the old Amazonian tribes of women, or the old Egyptian pharaohs, and the women who are in power, the women in power of those eras. We look back and we say, wow, these women, like Boudica of the Celts, they were the perfect image of a woman in sovereign power and in balance between man and woman. Well, that's not quite so, is it? A lot of the women were equally distributing similar patriarchal values, but from a woman's self. So it's not to say that we've had a perfect example of the genders in balance before. Maybe we have to go even further back. Maybe we have to go further and further back, where there is an essential spirit of femininity and masculinity which are outside of these structures. Perhaps the feminine, the divine feminine, isn't what we've understood Boudica or priestesses from Egypt to be. Maybe that was, again, not in its purest sense. So we have to keep going back rather than harking back to past structures. We really need to go to our inner core, find who we in our core are, which is in this voidal past historic state, the cells of our being. And from that place, that is the womb. That is the womb that we birth from. That is the cosmic dark space, the creatoric space, which births life into form. And that, the form, is the new structure. So that enables us to take responsibility, because we have so much in Capricorn. It really enables us to take, Capricorn, so much responsibility. Jupiter is the responsibility. The father, the prophetic benevolent father, is having to be very responsible and grounded and expand this area which is difficult to expand. But it's really important for us to expand like a magnifying glass upon this arena of our lives, and it will take hard work. But that's the point, is it's that going to that mystery point. And so, need it be said that Saturn and Pluto are becoming into a conjunct position on the 10th of January, around and about the full moon. So we do have these two potent, huge, kind of, you could say tormentors, you could say destroyers, discipline makers, really amazing opportunities that we have to die to the old and to remake the skeletal structures. I was reading a blog talking about Pluto being at the furthest edge of our solar system, of the planets that we have circulating our sun, which it is. And then Saturn is a discipline maker. So we're disciplining our unknown. We're pushing further into our unknown. How can we bring commitment and discipline to parts of ourselves that we have shut ourselves off to? Capricorn can be quite closed-minded because it likes to keep this as a structure of organization, which is very useful. But we are being pushed into the real taboo unknown of this, which is bringing us out of the old so that we can see, and disciplining us to die, to bring in this doorway for the new. So it's bringing in an access point which will be shrouded, which will be platonic and maybe dark, and it's appearing to be this scary, horrific change. But it is exactly what we need to go into the next level of our evolution phase, because obviously we know that we cannot continue with the over-consumerism and the over-pollutions of our planet, and our interhuman hierarchical principles, which will not serve us going into the future, because the earth and the women and the children are over and over again just being put at the bottom of that pyramid, the vulnerable, the abused, and these scapegoats take on the form of the earth. So our earth, we are one with all of creation. We are connected with the sacredness of creation. So the way that the earth is suffering is symbolic of the way that our own humanity and our animals in terrible living situations, such as in dairy farming, are suffering. So we need to start to take responsibility, and that will mean that we will have to let go of some of our old habitual obsessions, whether it be the amount of water we like to use on our garden in the summer, or whether it be the amount of meat that we like to eat every day. Maybe these things need to actually change in a gentle yet powerful way. So I would also like to comment on the fact that we have Neptune in Pisces, as I mean, everyone must know this who follows astrology. Neptune takes a long time to move. Neptune, the moon, and Lilith right now. Black moon Lilith. The illusions that we can see, and the illusions that we can feel, and the illusions in our emotions, and the illusions that we can get swept up into, but also the capacity for us to see through the illusions of the old Piscean hierarchy, which is kind of like, so we had Jesus, who was seen, labeled, Christianity was labeled with the fish, which is the Pisces fish. And that was heralding a change of, where we had the hierarchical structures created through religion. It's also heralding the change of these religious structures between the priest and the people, where we have this kind of like no-go area where the priest stands and the people cannot get access to God. And Jesus was showing that through him, through the heart, through the Christ itself, is the way to the divine, which is within all of us. And we're starting to grasp that now as the hierarchy is starting to shift. So it's seeing through that illusion. So we can also see through the illusion of our own patriarchal hierarchy, and the way that we do that in our own lives, because we are the operators of that and the continuers of that through our lives, and the way that we play the game of being the worker bees for the capitalist society. How can we start to develop our own sovereignty and perhaps our own divine, queenly, kingly structures that we sit on the throne for, as opposed to acting as servants to a king or a queen, such as the queen in our own country, the UK, who is potentially completely corrupt. I mean, you just don't know. Potentially, there's a lot of argument for it, and there might not be, but it's essential for us to have our own sight and our own intuition. Okay, so as we're going into the new phase, we also can take into account that Aquarius is going to have a huge amount of impact on our lives going in towards the end of 2020, as we have Saturn and Jupiter coming together at the very beginning of Aquarius, the very first degree. So it's essential for us, as we're starting to change, that we're coming into this Aquarian, which is the way of seeing society in a non-hierarchical, flat access, where all structures can connect, and where people groups come together and connect based on similar ethos. And the political structures are no pyramid-like anymore, but it is a connection between all. So this is what I would like to share for this sharing, and wish you a very joyful and very significant and powerful beginning to 2020.